This is the Building Walls podcast, episode 51, recorded September 7th, 2021. My Texas, my choice.
That's why I made it a priority my entire career to work closely with you. From the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago. No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman in anger other than in self-defense. I'm prepared to say that I have a record of over 40 years and that I'm going to beat Joe Biden. Look at my record. Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states.
Welcome to the Building Walls podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
That was like a really corny intro, I feel like you just gave, but I like it.
No, for real though. I'm fired up, man. This is
We got some big changes coming. Big news.
Big news. Huge. Like Pretty Woman walked past the store with all the stuff in her hand. News. Like, hey, you guys, you done messed up by not picking us up earlier, for sure.
Huge.
Yeah,
so
we have people?
Yeah, we have a new producer, director extraordinaire.
My man, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Matthew Waiteka. And I'm.
Let us know what your preferred pronouns are, please,
my preferred
Matthew.
Pronouns. It'd be he, him, and attack helicopter. Those would be my preferred pronouns.
All right, attack helicopter.
Yeah.
And Z and
You
Zer.
can call me Velociraptor. You got that, attack helicopter?
I got that.
So let's just be real. Like, how crazy is it, right, that we live in a country where people find that offensive if you don't ask that question? Right? If I see you and you look like a man, I'm going to say he.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're not a man. But if you look like one, let's not act like no one knows it or like you don't know it yourself. You know you look like a man.
I mean, are you rolling straight into
I don't know.
the rants, because it kind of feels like you're rolling right into the rant. Now, we did have some big changes. We brought on Matthew. He's a total stud, and we didn't want to get sidetracked on that because we actually have new equipment to go along with our stuff. We're upgraded and hopefully a little bit more crisp, if you know what I mean. But one thing that has not changed is the weekly rant. And so to help us kick off season 3 of the Building Walls podcast, and don't ask me why it's season 3, it's because I said so. That's why. It's football season. We're ready to rock and roll. We're ready to make things happen. But cue it up. Our leader, the main man, Mr. Chad Whalls.
As your leader, we are reverting from calling this season 3 because we are always in season, baby. We are always in season, unlike pumpkin spice lattes or anything pumpkin spice for that matter. So with this, I'm going to start out with a preview of Transcend Pastry Shop Strawberry Guava Cupcake Beer. It's fantastic.
You're going to drink during the rant?
I'm not saying I'm going to drink during the rant, but I'm showcasing that because I'm going to be drinking that throughout this podcast. So the rant that I want to talk about is with NFL season along the way here, and we have fantasy football drafts going on. Most of them already completed. Some may be going on as we talk. I don't know. But it's the fact that coming from Detroit, every year, Detroit sports has drafts, and they draft terrible players, besides maybe 10% of the time. And then 5 years later, 10 years later, someone always talks about, oh my God, if we didn't draft, think of who we could have drafted in place of Darko Milicic. We could have drafted whoever. right? And they go through this litany of players who have become great. Or think about every team in the NFL. Think about who we could have drafted, right? We could have drafted Tom Brady, but instead we took such and such scrub. Well, yeah, wouldn't it be great if we all had a crystal ball and knew what these players were going to turn out to be? That's why they have a draft. That's why they go through all this work of scouting players and looking at players. But here's what I think is the missing point. Some of these players wouldn't have been great had they not been put in the position that they were in. On the flip side, some of these players are not great because they go to specific teams and coaches, right? So there's so much, and I hate that people go on this litany of players. This is why my team sucks or whatever. Like, when did you become a professional scout? Help me out here, right? It's so annoying to me.
I can see that.
It's just so annoying. Like when people think that they could have done better in any given situation instead of just walking 2 moons in someone else's moccasins, as the old book goes.
Oh man, come on! Is it going to be one of those types of shows? Dude, did you hear that? Could you hear that in the background? There's a massive storm going through Detroit right now. It was crazy. I think lightning just hit my house.
Oh geez. Well, you still got power, so that's good.
We still have power, so we're
You must have rubber shingles.
It's awesome.
End rant.
That rant was brought to you by what beer again?
Transcend Pastry Shop at your service. It's a Connecticut brewery. I believe it is. I don't know that they distribute anywhere, to be honest with you. So it sucks. It's a sour. They have a different flavor, and the pastry shop, it's like banana, pineapple, cream, cheesecake. I don't know. It's crazy, but that one's pretty good too. It tastes like a pina colada.
All right. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. So with that said, Chris.
Yeah, let's segue into our first main topic.
Let's segue into the real deal. The Texas abortion law.
Buddy. Oh, dude, we're going to go there right out of the gate.
Right, so this is what I should have ranted on, because I'm probably going to rant again, and you will probably rant again too.
Maybe.
We've been going through these different abortion laws for states. I think it started with, was it like Louisiana a year or two ago? And every time that stuff like this happens, the left goes crazy about how bad this is for women's health and how my body, my choice, and we're going to get into more of that later. But if you sit down and you talk with someone intelligently about this, what drives me crazy is that most of these laws put a time period, right? You can have an abortion until 6 weeks, right? And after that, then you can't, because once the baby has a heartbeat, that's when they disallow it, right?
That's what the Texas law currently states.
Texas laws, and many like the Texas law. But then what does the left always do, Chris? What do they always do when that's mentioned?
Well, hey, what about if I was sexually assaulted and raped, I don't want to have that baby. What if there's something wrong, with the health, or that's what happens every time. The question I always have, and I think this is where you're going with that, right? Is like, first of all, we know that rape is a terrible, terrible thing that's in our, just in humanity as a whole, which is, it's unbelievable that it happens even still to this day. The barbaric nature of it. That being said, if you are pregnant because of a rape, you kind of would know that within 6 weeks, wouldn't you, Chad? I mean, I'm just trying to ask a simple question.
The funny part is we didn't even talk about this, but that's exactly my point. Did you not know for 6 weeks that you got raped?
Maybe you should, like, if you were raped and you had to go through that trauma of that, I mean, it would seem like one of the first things I would do is probably go see a doctor. I mean, I would want to be tested for, venereal disease, for, if I'm pregnant, if I'm a woman, I would want to know those things from a health standpoint. So I think that should be, I guess, the 6 week thing. Like, yeah, to me, you should know within 6 weeks if there's an issue.
Right. In 6 weeks, right? You got raped. You're gonna know it. And just so we're clear, I mean, we are totally against rape. And I think speaking for both of us, we are totally understanding that there's certain cases where, people want to have an abortion outside of just normal circumstances. And I'll have to look this up just for the facts of the show. But we were talking about this before, where cases of rape are a very low percentage. Like, we're talking less than 1% of abortions come from cases of rape. So not only would you have to somehow forget that you got raped in a 6 weeks period of time, right? And take the steps to make sure that you're not pregnant or that you don't want to have that kid. But it also happens so little that the fact that they bring that up is illogical. And what that means is they're not really looking for a way to, have it make sense. Because that's not what the left does, right? If the left didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards. So they're not trying for it to make sense.
Man. Come on, no, they got standards, man. Don't shoot them under the bus like that.
Double standards.
For real though, they just look at it from a different standpoint of accountability, and they wait, and this is where I would love to have someone on the show who could come on and say what they truly believe is the issue. And I just think that they prioritize wrong. At the end of the day, Chad, I think what happens with this topic is that, in fact, here, I was scrolling through when this went through, I saw it on Facebook, and I don't go on Facebook that often, but I'm definitely looking at some of the feeds, and people are like, I support women's rights, the woman's right to choose. And there was a nice one that was like, I support Susanna, who was raped and, doesn't want to have this baby. I support Brianna, who had a medical, her doctor advised her that her life was in danger, etc. But then it had one that was like, and I support Nicole, who doesn't feel like she has the means to be able to have and carry the baby and give birth and provide a life for it. And that's the one that I have a problem with. Because you know what? That's a total lack of accountability. Because if you really feel that way, in that example of Nicole just deciding that, oh, I'm not in a position to have a baby, then don't have sex. Okay? Have oral sex. Be responsible. Because you decide you want to engage in the act of reproduction, but you don't want the responsibility of said reproduction, is not fair to the life form that you created.
Right. If you're going to make choices in life, be okay with the consequences. And if you're not going to be okay with the consequences, make a different choice.
Yeah, and to be clear,
it's as easy as that.
I am not anti-abortion. In all those situations that previously were mentioned, I could understand, especially before 6 weeks. Like, who would want that? The mental part. See, this is the part that's interesting too, is because there are more complicated parts to the argument. The mental anguish, the fallout, the challenges that come with that, the mental health aspect of going through the trauma of a sexual assault, I think, lends itself to the fact that, yeah, you got to look at it from different angles. Now, the idea that, like, well, it's the woman's body and she gets to decide, fine. I'm okay with that as long as you understand that there's a body inside you, there's a life. And I think that's where the real crux of the argument comes in. And that's why I'm okay with the Texas law, is because it's after 6 weeks, after we all concluded that that's actually a life. And I mean, that life can't speak for itself. So are we a civilization that will protect those that cannot speak for themselves? Or are we just going to let the Darwinism take over?
I mean, apparently in a lot of things in life, we just let the Darwinism take over, right? But here's what I think is hilarious, which is it goes right into everything that I feel like conservatives believe, right? Celebrities like Bette Midler, Alyssa Milano, and others like them. When all this stuff starts going on, they make these pledges. We should stick it to men. We should call for abstinence to stick it to the pro-lifers.
I mean,
hey,
yes,
moron.
I
That's
agree.
what we want
That's
you to do.
exactly the point. It's like, if you don't want to have a kid, then don't do that.
Yeah, so what's funny is they're so dense, right? Celebrities like Bette Midler are so dense. They're so stupid. They don't get it. Like, yeah, that is what you should do. You should be abstinent. You shouldn't have sex. That's how you avoid coming into this decision of whether or not you want to have an abortion, right? But then on the other side, Chris, you have wild things like this. Celebrating, right? There was a clinic in Texas, and I know this isn't the only story because not Amy Johnson, what's her name from that movie? She left. She worked for Planned Parenthood and left, whatever. But we'll figure it out. You can Google it. I'm sure a quick search will figure it out. But a Texas clinic was celebrating the fact that they performed 67 abortions in 17 hours to beat September 1st deadline when the Texas bill went into effect. Like, really? Is this a race now? Is this a competition to see how many babies we can kill?
Just imagine being offended that babies get to live.
Imagine being that baby.
I mean, oh my God. So, this is where
aren't you glad your mom didn't abort you?
This is where having a producer is really awesome, because he's chiming in here.
Are you offended yet?
Yeah. Are you pissed off yet? But anyway, sent over a USA Today story that shows just 1% of women obtain an abortion because of pregnancy through rape, and less than 0.5% do because of incest.
Isn't it amazing that I came up with those stats without even knowing that article existed? And our producer so graciously backed up my point. Wow, you're amazing, Matthew.
And I guess, like, USA Today, is that a credible source these days or not? I mean, I think it is.
It is for the left. So it should hold true here, right?
Should. And that's my problem. And I've said this before, Chad, is I can't stand it when we have a government that legislates to the minority exception. Okay? And in this case, those are minority exceptions, and they should be the rule. But the vast rule is designed for holding people accountable for the choice that they made to get in bed. And, pound it out. Good for you. I hope you enjoyed your night. But you know what? If you do that, there's lots of ways to have preventative sex. Okay? This is not new concept. Dude, if you're going to tell me that I got to put on 2 masks to protect people from the virus, then maybe you should double up your Jimmy so you don't have to go kill your baby.
I'm just saying, my health teacher, my sex ed teacher in 10th grade showed us a great demonstration why you don't want to double up your Jimmy. So, I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
Why you don't want to?
Correct. The latex, the contact on it will causes friction and cause them to break. So you're actually better with 1 Jimmy than you are with 2.
Wow.
Just so we're clear to those listeners who consider wearing 2 Jimmys.
Oh man, that's so
With
funny.
that being said, but you're right? If they're gonna go out there and legislate to this stuff, the my body, my choice stuff, right? And I mean, we could probably go all day on these two topics, and we might,
Well,
or all night rather.
but they seamlessly work with the
Right,
virus.
right. If they're gonna go my body, my choice, and push it and push it and push it, why are we mandating wearing masks? Right? If it's my body, my choice, why are we mandating wearing masks? Especially when it was first said if you got vaccinated, you wouldn't spread the virus, you wouldn't get the virus, both proven wrong. Second, the mask you're wearing isn't going to stop anything. How many scientific studies do we need to see that are out there that weren't even related to the coronavirus that show that these masks don't stop anything that small of size? How far are we going to go, Chris? I thought it was my body, my choice, right? But no. But, well, I mean, but if you're going to be with me in the room and out in public, well, it's not just your body, your choice. You're affecting me too. Stay away. I don't want to be near you anyway.
The concept of my body, my choice is really not my body. It's just my choice. That's what they want. They want power. These people, they mask it, ironically. I said that funny. They mask it in the desire to control. In all well-meaning intentions, of course. There's probably the interesting part about it is I would love to know if and hold on 1 second here, because it is true that Chad and I are in a fantasy draft here, and I got to make my selection here. So let's go with a little Cooper Cup, huh?
Oh, geez, you could have just did that in the background here.
Nominate, yeah. So it's an auction draft.
God
We're going to
bless.
segue before we get back off COVID and everything. But the reality is, I just nominated Cooper Cup, and I'm watching people go crazy over him because everybody thinks that Stafford's going to have a great year.
Be continued.
To be continued. So either way, it's just in the background. By the way, I've already got 5 people on my team. How many do you have? No one.
So back to the podcast, Christopher.
Whatever.
The crazy part about all this is that the government doesn't even need to push this stuff anymore, right? They have the media, they have businesses that are creating this fear, right? And that in turn pushes the public to push this vaccine agenda themselves. And if I had $1 for every time I've heard someone say, like, yeah, I mean, I got, vaccinated, and I think everyone should because it's a vaccine, even though, I don't agree with the administration, or, I don't see that way. But I think because it's a vaccine, and there's this deadly virus out there that's killing people at a whole less than 1.5% fatality rate, that we should all get vaccinated because it's what's going to help us. And we should wear masks. It's what's going to help us. Even though I don't agree with Biden and he's still a kook, but it's going to help us.
I do have a legitimate question, and I would love to get somebody on, on the line about this. Maybe if you're listening to this, maybe send me in.
On the line.
On the line, on the Google machine. But for real, they've literally come out. The CDC has come out that said that having the vaccine, whether any of the vaccines, whether it's Pfizer or Moderna, Johnson and Johnson, if you have the vaccine, they're talking about now you need to get a booster for this. The testing is showing that you can still get COVID, even if you're vaccinated. And the concern is that not only can you get COVID, but that, of course, you can spread COVID. So if you're vaccinated and you can still get COVID and you can still pass it to somebody else, spread it to someone, then the only benefit to having the vaccine is that if it prevents you from having major illness, or i.e. death, right? Am I wrong?
That would be the only plus to having it. Because
That's
if no one's dying from this, what does it matter?
true. And if you're vaccinated, so in my opinion, like if you feel like you're at risk, you've never been exposed to COVID, you don't know if you've ever been exposed to COVID, or maybe you don't have antibodies, you go to your doctor, you to the antibody test, you've never had it in your system, or you don't have antibodies in your system, and you feel you're afraid that you might get this and actually suffer greatly from it, then you should be vaccinated. Right? Am I wrong? Is there a lie in there?
No, that's it. If you're concerned, get vaccinated. If you're concerned, stay at home. If you're concerned, don't go around other people. But don't go around other people and then say that I have to get vaccinated. Say that I have to wear a mask. Don't come around me in a public place and say that I have to do something, right?
Yeah, so what's the difference?
If you're the one that's afraid, stay at home.
If you have a vaccinated person and an unvaccinated person, the similarities between those two are you can both get COVID and you can both pass COVID. So now the only difference between those two people is the level of risk at which they want to live their life. If you're unvaccinated, you're accepting the risk that you could potentially die.
The risk, according to
Right?
Dr. Fauci.
But I mean, can we agree that that's what the risk really is? Is that as an unvaccinated person, that person is choosing that they're okay with the fact that if they get COVID, they could because even before the vaccine, when you got COVID, there were asymptomatic people. There were people who didn't experience severe symptoms. They may have only had mild symptoms. But as an unvaccinated person, you're saying you're at potential risk of getting severe symptoms. And the one argument that I've heard is, well, yes, because the unvaccinated people get severe symptoms, they're now going to the hospital and we're running out of room in the hospitals. And I just don't understand that, because all of 2020, when we didn't have a vaccine, when there was no vaccine, the hospitals weren't overrun. And now that there is a vaccine, and a lot of people who have chosen to administer that vaccine, now the hospitals are being overrun. Were you unprepared for the fact that this is now, I don't know, almost a year and a half into this? 19 months, 20 months now? That sounds like a leadership problem. That doesn't sound like it warrants people taking away people's choices for healthcare or for other things. But maybe that's the case. Like, why is there not separate buildings set up specifically for COVID? No, nothing.
I don't know. Do you know why?
No, I don't. That's my question. I'm asking. I want to know. I
think
don't
you're asking the
understand
wrong
who's
person.
running the show. Who's making these choices and making the leadership calls, and their answer is, "Hey, I know. We're
Their
gonna
answer
go
is
ahead."
Trump got us into this mess. We're doing everything we can to get it out because it's still Donald Trump's fault. 8 months later,
Everything's Donald Trump's fault. It's gonna be that way for 20 years. They're gonna
still
point
Donald
back
Trump's fault, right?
everything.
So here's what's crazy: that some things that we see, Chris, is if they're so worried about vaccines and all of this stuff going on, right? Why isn't there such a bigger need to vaccinate refugees that come into the country? Why aren't we worried about them being vaccinated, huh?
I don't know, dude. How could you watch college football last weekend and see stadiums all across the country filled to the brim with people, wall to wall, but yet my kid has to wear a mask going to school today?
stadiums, protests, riots. The reason why it doesn't matter is because if the left agrees with it, it's okay, right? If the left wants to go do it, it's okay, right?
I guess so.
Because then there's that other stuff going around, which I've seen people share. They show, you had to share your vaccination card, right, to get into elementary school. So, like,
That's
well,
insane.
hey, we've all done this before, Christopher. We all had to share our vaccination records when we're in elementary school. What's the difference from doing it now? The difference is it wasn't government mandated for adults to share their vaccination records for their kids to go to school. The difference is there was stuff out there like polio that were deadly to kids if you caught it, right?
Right.
So you got vaccinations like that. The coronavirus, COVID-19, is very similar to the flu, right? When's the last time you got a flu
similar
shot?
properties.
Right. Well, it falls under coronavirus, which is the same
Right.
thing the flu falls under. The flu is a coronavirus.
Hmm.
So what's the difference, right? The difference is I'm an adult. I don't need to show my vaccination card to go out in public. Right?
It shouldn't be. I mean, but I think one of the interests, and here's what I really would love to know is like, what's the balance? How many people are really against this? Because, the voices can get loud. People scream. I mean, hell, we have our podcast, and if people listen to us or we get syndicated out, I mean, people are going to be like, yeah, those two guys are pretty upset about this. And we could be loud voices, but it might just be the two of us or a handful of us. And the vast majority of people are okay with, dictating other people's freedoms. I don't know. Maybe America as we know it is dead.
Maybe it is. I mean, we do know for sure that, the Democrats of the JFK party are not the Democrats of today's party, right?
Well, the same can be said for, the Republicans. I mean, the Republicans aren't the Reagans.
No, yeah, we've all shifted.
Either. I mean,
we've all shifted. That's what I'm getting to, is that Democrats of the 70s are now Republicans, right? They would mostly fall. And I think what happens is it's this identity politics type of thing, right? Or the fact that everyone wants to belong to a tribe. So once you hit your formative years and you can think for yourself and you're 18 years old or older, right? And you can vote and you grew up in the 70s, right? And you were a Democrat because you loved JFK. Well, as the past 50 years now has progressed, you're still a Democrat, right? Because there's these slow changes that occur. And you've been told now for 50 years that if you're a Democrat, you should hate the Republicans. So you've continued down this path. But then when you have these conversations with people in public, to your point, what you're saying, you run across these Democrats, and I feel like it's heavy in the New England area. These Democrats in New England are still all about gun laws or gun rights. They still believe in constitutional carry, They still believe in the freedom of speech, but they vote Democrat because their parents did or because they always have. Yet when you talk to them about these certain things, they almost feel like if they vote against the Democratic Party, it's betrayal. Because that's what they've attached their identity to, right? Is the Democratic Party, because they've always been Democrats. Well, I voted for JFK back in 60, 70, whatever it was, right? But JFK now is a Republican, right? JFK didn't cram these, and I don't want to say this wrong, but like gay marriage laws down people's throats. He didn't slam abortion down people's throats. He was actually against abortion. He was against gay marriage and things like that. That the Republicans now are seen as being against, and they were before, of course. but he was more socially and financially conservative than what I would say Joe Biden, but Joe Biden's not really anything. I don't think Joe Biden knows what Joe Biden is.
Well, I think some of the stuff that's going on with him is pretty evident. I mean, when you've got your polling numbers that have gone from you're well over 50%, and now you're at 41, is the last approval poll I saw. That's what happens when you have a cluster like Afghanistan and the exit. And I think universally, that's one thing where Americans can really unite is like you don't leave an American behind. You don't do that. Like it doesn't matter. I wouldn't do that to a Democrat. I wouldn't do that to a Republican. I would do it to a Libertarian. You don't do that to an American. You don't leave them high and dry. We're the United States of America, and we still have to have each other's backs. And when that happened, I think a lot of people kind of woke up to what was really happening. Like, when the guy walks up and you're the president of the United States and he says, I've been instructed, it's like, just stop. Whatever sentence you're about to say next is total BS because you're the president of the United States. You do the instructing. You are not the one being instructed. Like, come on, dude.
Right. You may be instructed, but it's still your choice, right?
You're the president.
As he so adequately said, the buck stops with him.
No, the buck does not stop with him. The buck stops with somebody else who's telling him who to call on.
Exactly.
And what to say.
It's so crazy, right? We don't leave Americans stranded. We're not going to leave Americans stranded. And then, a week later, you have John Kirby saying like, "Oh yeah, we leave Americans stranded all the time." Oh, you do? Because wait, I thought you didn't leave Americans stranded.
General America does not like that.
Is that why mercenary groups like the Pineapple Express had to rescue tens of thousands of Americans?
Yes, that is why.
Is that because our government? So let's just talk about this really quick, right? Who?
I need another.
What
drink.
Government? What military? Right? Pulls out their military before making sure all of their citizens that want to be removed are removed. When you're in a hostile territory, right, Chris, that you've invaded, right? We were not called to go
20 years.
Yeah, we were not. Afghanistan did not give the president of the United States a phone call, right? Hey, President Bush, just so you know, there's going to be an attack on the country soon, and we would like you to come over and help us stop these terrorists after. Right? That did not happen. We invaded Afghanistan. And everyone knows how the Middle East is. They don't run around everywhere chanting Donald Trump's name, chanting, I love America, waving the American flag, right? They hate Americans. They want to kill Americans.
Yeah.
So in what world?
I was going to say, there's a lot of videos, to your point, what world are we going to be in? But to your point, they're chanting death to America. But they seem nice.
Right. So what world do we live in where you would pull out your whole military before making sure all of your citizens are removed and then leaving it up to mercenaries, private citizens, to rescue them? And then taking it a step further, they even had issues. They were blocked in certain areas by the Secretary of State and held up on flights, on runways.
It's almost like we asked their permission if we could leave. And I don't understand that. When you're the alleged superpower, then shouldn't you be the one telling them, hey, we're going to leave and we'll let you know when we're going to leave? In fact, we're heading out. We're going to take our people. Taliban, if you want this country, you guys can fight it out amongst yourselves. I'm in total agreement that we should leave and just turn it over and let them do them. You be you. You do you, boo. Whatever you want. But you know what? We're going to leave. But you don't tell me when I'm going to leave. I'll let you know when I'm going to leave. And I'll send you an email okay? Or a little, I'll tie a note to a goat and send it over to your little village, okay? But don't ever show up here. And that's actually the response I was looking for. I was waiting for somebody, whether it was Joe Biden or it was, Blinken or whatever his name is, the, Secretary of State, to say, you know what, here's what we communicated to the Taliban. If you show up and you have a gun in the street, you're a military target and we're going to shoot you dead. We'll let you know when we're leaving. And but if you want to have this fight, then we have no problem wiping you all off the planet. How's that? So go back in your hills, go back to wherever you came from. We'll let you know when you can come over here. Because we were leaving. Instead, it turned into a total cluster. Like, why? Why? None of that had to happen. You could have let the kid that plays Call of Duty at 12 years old decide a better plan and strategy of leaving than what Joe Biden and his crew put together. It's insane.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Think about this. Donald Trump's in office. This goes down, which we can talk about this now, right? Before, it would have been like, oh, imagine if the Democrats were in office. They wouldn't be talking about this at all. Guess what? The Democrats are in office, and they're not talking about it at all.
At all. They don't want to talk about it.
Imagine if Donald Trump was in office and he left Americans over there. What do you think they would be saying right now? They would be going wild. Oh my God, I can't believe Donald Trump's killing Americans. How can you vote for a man? How can you vote for a party? Anyone that supports Donald Trump, these people are animals. Can you believe they support a man who would leave Americans stranded in Afghanistan? Wait, that's Joe Biden.
Yeah, Mr. One Term. Unless, of course, we have mail-in voting again. Whatever. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, mail-in voting is going on with which is probably something we should chat about next week with the election in California. I haven't really followed that much so far.
Yeah,
but
what a mess, dude.
Who knows? Who knows?
So, hey, Mr. Producer, Matt, how long are we into this show for? What's the recording at?
You guys are sitting right now at about 41 minutes or so.
Oh,
beautiful.
Perfect.
Call it a night.
Dude, how great is it that we upgraded our equipment and we have an actual producer now?
Yeah, I hope I sound better, for all the kids at home.
And I guess we're rated PG-13 now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we refrained from any cuss words throughout it.
I did really good. I'm not going to lie, it's really hard when I start talking about some of these topics, how annoyed I actually get. But we did good.
With that said, I'm excited. We got our producer, director extraordinaire on board, who's going to absolutely crush it for us. I'm excited. Mr. Dayton, upgrading our equipment. You got your mic working. We're going legit. We're going legit, ladies and gentlemen.
We upped our game, because you know what? And honestly, here's why we did. Because we think that our message and the things that we're talking about are important. And we'd love to hear the feedback. We want feedback. Tweet at us. Our Twitter handles are on these videos and things like that. Go ahead, tweet us. Let us know what you think. Tell me I'm dumb. Tell me I'm stupid. Whatever you want. Or agree with me. Tell me where I'm wrong. And a lot of this stuff. I'm open to the conversation. I am genuinely open to the conversation. So please, let's have it. We can still be civil. We can still have disagreements. Maybe I see things differently. But I'd love the opportunity to hear from somebody else. And then as long as they give me the opportunity to articulate my side too, because I think we can bridge some gaps here and actually bring people together. I think it'd be good. That's why we're doing it. Right, Chad?
Exactly. Because when you come at it and tell me that you can't believe how bad these abortion laws are, because what happens if a woman gets raped? And I say, so are you telling me she didn't know that she got raped for 6 weeks straight? I'm probably going to call you stupid at that point. Just so we're on the same page.
That's a good way to make friends. All right. So with that, until next week, right, my man?
That's right, Commander Dayton.
Commander Whalls.